It's good to be back with my church family. I really, really miss you, and I didn't realize how much I missed you until I went to other churches while I was away. And I was like, oh, our church isn't like that. But anyway, I suppose we're not here to compare churches. They all worship the same God. And just because we do things our way, probably people come in here and go, this is a weird church. But anyway, I did have an opportunity to go to a Hillsong church. So it was an amazing experience. That was really beautiful. The way they do it is so amazing. And I'm like, talk about organization. I could take a leaf out of their book, man, because they have campuses. The Hillsong is it's a huge church in Australia, and you can actually go there and do an internship. A lot of music, a lot of today's Christian musicians come from the Hillsong churches. But how their churches work is they have different campuses. So they have one in Cape Town, one in Pretoria, one in Somerset West, which was closer to my mom, closer when I say 45 minutes drive away, that was close. And then there was another one in the middle of South Africa. So all 4 campuses do their service at the same time. So this is coordination, I tell you, because there's only one pastor preaching via video. But the way they do it is the worship band comes and you do worship, and then they give it over to the video feed. So the timing is impeccable. I was like, how are they going to do that? But the timing is impeccable, and the pastor comes in, and they fade out, and the pastor speaks to all 4 campuses at the same time, and then he fades out, and their worship band just picks back up again, and they do their thing in their church. But it's such a well-oiled machine. I'm like, yes, I want to be like that. So there will be changes. I have been away, and I've learned some new things. But anyway, unless you're changing your pastor. Well, I should be careful about changes, eh? That could be one of them. But anyway, it was a blessing. It was a blessing to have that time with my family and to be away. But here we are in a new year. And I think we always come into a new year, well, most of us come into the new year with resolutions, with a list of, I'm not going to eat any more chocolate again, which I know I'm keeping for 1 week and then it's gone again, right? Everybody's going to go, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And sometimes we do keep them and sometimes we don't. But as I was away, I had a lot of time to reflect on the past year and a lot of time to reflect on what's going to be different this year. And I was asking God to give me what is the next step? Where do I need to take you? What is it that I need to work on again? Continue. We always continue to work on ourselves. We always continue to look to get stronger in Christ and be able to speak more about God. And I felt led to go through the book of Hebrews again. And as I was reading in the book of Hebrews, I kind of stopped here at chapter 3 because it spoke about a house and a building, and it made me ponder. And as I was pondering, I thought about it in my personal life. Like, we had 3 houses in our married life that we owned. Our first house and our second house, for that matter, was fixer-uppers. Like we bought this. The first house we bought was just this little 2-bedroom house, and there was lots wrong. It was a bank repossession. I worked at the bank at the time, as you all know, and so you get inside information. And so we were able to get this bank repossession. But of course, a 2-bedroom house isn't big enough to carry on in your family. And so our second house that we got was also a bank repossession. They were actually squatters that were living in the house, and we got it at a really good deal, and we fixed it up. But when we came to Canada, when I realized how cold it was, there was no ways I was moving into a fixer-upper house. I said to my husband, you get me a warm house, otherwise I'm going back to Africa, right? Because we actually did live in a farmhouse. We rented this farmhouse on County Road 26, and oh my gosh, the winter was freezing, like seriously, especially for me coming from Africa. I really struggled with keeping warm. So when the time came that we had to move, we started to look for another house. And I always say it was such a God thing that we found the place where we are, because I had phoned this estate, because I said to Daniel, well, maybe we need to look at a new build. I mean, I knew nothing about building a house, really, seriously. And because I thought when they talk new build, they meant it's a newly built house that you just go to, right? So we were saving up and we had a bit of a deposit and we were going to buy a house. Now we're finally in that place where we were going to buy a house. It was very exciting for us. And so, because seriously, I thought we'd never own a house again in Canada because, we were 33 when we came out here, 2 kids starting all over again. It was almost like, it felt like it was impossible. But with God, all things are possible, right? And I still, to this day, am amazed that we even saved all that money. So, but I know it's thanks to God and thanks to us for being disciplined to do it too. I mean, I'm not taking myself out of the equation. We had to do without in order to have. So this estate agent said to me, no, okay, you go down this road and you turn right and turn left and whatever. Well, if anybody knows me, my left is my right and my right is my left. I am synonymous for getting lost. To the point that when we were in the States the last time, I left my GPS home. I had to go and buy a GPS to find my way. My brother-in-law and them live in Charlottesville, and you'd think it's an easy place. No, 2 hours later, we still couldn't find our way home. So anyway, GPSs are wonderful. And of course, you can't switch your phone on there because it'll cost you a fortune. Anyway, hence my sense of direction turned me down the wrong road, and we came into the little subdivision where we were and now. So I think sometimes God allows our GPS to be off, which in that case it was a benefit. And we came into the little subdivision and it was Moran Drive where this builder was building houses. And then I said to my husband, we can't build a house. We don't know how to build a house. Like, we're dumb. Like, seriously, we don't know. Anyway, he said, well, let's just go and find out and speak to the builder. And we did. It was Hilden Homes that was building there. And then I discovered that one of his family were living in that area. And I figured, hey, well, he can't be a bad builder if one of his family live in one of his houses, right? And there weren't that many houses there at the time. And like I say, it was a God thing. We spoke to the builder, and he was a Christian man. And we didn't have access. I'd put our money into like an RSP, not knowing, because I'm just following what people tell you, because it works totally different in South Africa than what it does in Canada. And so even though I had banking experience, it's just still different, right? So the money was tied up. And so the builder was, don't worry about it. You can, and I was like, oh, who does that? This has got to be God. But it was, and we chose the plan for our house. But without that, we researched who this builder was. We went and looked at what he'd done, other houses that he'd built in the area and other areas, because we needed to know who this person was. And this is what made me think when I came to the chapter in Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 3 verses 1 through 6 reads, therefore, holy brothers, you who share in a heavenly calling, consider Jesus the apostle and high priest of our confession, who was faithful to him and appointed him just as Moses also was faithful in all God's house. Because for Jesus has been counted worthy of more glory than Moses, and as much more glory as the builder of a house has more honor than the house itself. For every house is built by someone, but the builder of all things is God. And that really struck me as, yes, our house was built by someone. And there it's telling us that the builder has more honor than the house itself. And as important as the house was, it was more important that I knew who the builder was, and that I had an understanding of the quality of that builder, and that builder built good homes, solid homes, homes that I and my family could live in. Because really, when you're looking for a house, you've got to decide what is the purpose of buying a house. You want to live there, you want to have fun there, you want to work there. Maybe you've got a business from home or something. So you're looking at so there's a plan. So when we were looking at these builders, and this made me think, it says here in Hebrews that every house is built by someone, but the builder of all things is God. And I was like, how cool is that? That our houses have all been built by someone. We had a mother and a father, and we became a baby, just like baby Jesus did. But God is in control of all of that. He's the builder of all things. And it says, now Moses was faithful in all God's house as a servant to testify to the things that were spoken later. But Christ is faithful over God's house as a son. and we are his house, if indeed we hold fast our confidence and our boasting in our hope. And I know this sounds like a little gibberish sometimes, but when you read it, you realize that the writer in Hebrews, nobody knows who the author is. There's lots of speculations. But Hebrews was written for the Jewish people to say to them, you know what, there was an old way of doing things, but now there's a new way of doing things. In the past, it starts, the first chapter of Hebrews begins, a long ago, in many times and many ways, God spoke to our fathers via the prophets. But in these last days, he's spoken to us via his Son. And so this chapter 3 is telling us a story of how we to look to the true builder of our house. You know, and our houses are built by someone. We live on this earth. We have a mum and a dad. Whether they're present or not in your life, whether they're alive, dead, or maybe just abandoned you, you know, we still come from somewhere. But God, you're not a mistake, because God ordained for you to be where you are. And this is the house that God built. This is my house that God built. And as much as we talk about our physical homes that we live in, this is the physical home. But you know what the coolest part was? When I was reading the scripture, it really brought home to me that God was saying to us, not only do I build your house, I give you a janitor. And now it's not a janitor in the way that you thinking, but I'm giving you someone that's living in your house and looking after you in every way, shape, and form. Right? Jesus Christ is that one. And why he's saying to the people, Moses, because I know they keep bringing Moses up because they really held Moses in high regard. And they were like, no, it's got to be like Moses, right? That was their standard. But now, the writer of Hebrews is saying, no. Moses was a good standard. He was a good servant. He made good where God, to pass the message of God on. But Jesus is the new standard. Jesus is the new keeper. And guess what? Jesus is not a mere servant. Jesus was involved in the building. He was involved in part of creating you. And guess what? He's now residing inside of you to look after the upkeep. Because you know what? When you have a tenant, I've heard so many horror stories about people who have tenants and they don't look after the house at all. And you do get good ones, but you see, and I'm not saying Moses was a bad tenant, please don't get me wrong. I'm saying Moses was a servant of God and he had a purpose and a plan. But Jesus is an heir. He's the Son of God. So he's got a vested interest in that house. He's going to make sure that every wall is in ship-shape position. He's going to make sure it's clean in every nook and cranny. He's going to make sure that the cobwebs are out of the corners. Right? Don't look at the cobwebs. Right? He's going to do that for us, which is such a cool thing. Because I thought about it and I was like, wow, that is so amazing. That God planned it that way for us. That he didn't just give us anybody to live in our house. It was a special somebody that lived in our house. That lives in our house. But you see, the Bible does remind us that Christ is faithful over God's house as a son, because when you're a son, there's a different interest there. And we are his house if we indeed hold fast our hope and confidence and our boasting in our hope. If we believe in God, if we trust God, if we understand who he is, we can claim this. We can claim Jesus Christ as a tenant in our home, in our house. And you know, there are times when things go wrong. And you know, I was thinking about it this morning and I thought, well, what happens when the roof needs repair or the door needs repair or a tap needs repair? We call in the expert to come and fix it, right? We call in people to come and repair it. But sometimes we try and do it ourselves and then we make a mess. And I thought about it, and as I thought about it, I thought, let me just reflect on my own journey. And this is where I ask you to reflect on your own journey, because your journey will be different to my journey, right? I mean, I could tell you that 18 months ago, one of my walls fell down in my house. It was a load-bearing wall. It was an important wall. I needed that wall. Right? And I thought about it some more, and I thought, well, there's so many ways you can go about looking at the damage. And I think sometimes we look at the damage and we go, okay, how can I hide it? Let me just put a curtain up so nobody can see it. And when people come in, they will never know that there's any damage, right? Because there's a pretty little curtain in the way. And then sometimes we try and fix it with stuff that doesn't need to be there. And that stuff could be a coping mechanism, an addiction, unhealthy stuff. So I could try and build the wall with drugs, alcohol, lying, deception, find another partner. I don't know. You know, you could fill that hole the way you think it needs to be filled. And there's many people that do that. There's many people that do that. Or you could stand back, survey the damage, and take it to the master builder and ask him how you should handle it now. And I think I can proudly say that that's what I did. And that is why I am so sure of who Jesus Christ is in my life. And I'm so sure that this broken home is not an ugly broken home, but a beautifully broken home, because Jesus Christ dwells inside of it. Right? And so my challenge to you today is, can you stand? Survey the damage, because we've all got damage. There's a wall in your house that's got a big fat hole in it. And you know that hole. You know what's in that hole, and you know what you need to fix that hole. And it's not the stuff that you've done before, because it never worked. It still looked ugly. No paint job, no plaster job could hide it. No curtains. No pretty pictures, because the damage is still there. And if we don't strip the wall, and if we don't assess and look at it and come to terms with it and say, okay, God, how now? What must I do? What is the next step for me? And so this year, this new year, God gave me a word last year, and the word was trust. I always ask God for a word each year. I just want one word. I don't like the word he gave me this year, but it's okay. I'll deal with it. It's called attitude. But, man, it's a hard one. So I'm going to be listening to attitude and giving attitude and getting rid of attitude. So, oh, wow. But, you know, God is always good when he does that. And in any case, I felt like part of what I can challenge you with this week is there's a little word called character. And I want each and every one of us to look at our character this week. You know what character is? Character is who you are. And what do you stand for? Because when you give your word to people, do you stand on it? When you say you'll do something, do you do it? Do you follow up? Are you faithful? You see, Moses was faithful. He was spoken about by the writer in Hebrews. His faithfulness got spoken about as Jesus is, and God is building this house in us. And you know, as we look at our characters this week, and it's hard because there's a process that you need to go through. You need to look for the cracks in your foundation You got to look for the mistakes in those walls, the holes, the places where they are, because we've all got them. We need to find those cracks. Then we need to assess the cracks. Because if you don't assess a crack, if you don't deal with it the way it needs to be dealt with, it's not going to go away, people. It actually gets worse. Because it just deteriorates after time. More and more, right? And we need to be able to deal with those cracks. So we need to assess them. We find them, we assess them, we face them. Facing them is hard. Facing them is hard. And as I say, I don't like the word God gave me, but he obviously gave it to me for a reason. My attitude. and it's not necessarily I need to have an attitude, a different attitude for different things. It's not all bad. Attitude isn't bad, but when I have a bad attitude, it is bad, right? So facing those things in my character that are not so nice. Maybe these things I need to change. Maybe I need to do things differently. And they always say you can't expect different results when you do the same things all the time. And change comes from within. And if you don't reflect by looking in the mirror and saying, God, what is it that I need to change about this part of my life? What is it that I need to work on in order to have great character, in order to be the person that you've called me to be? That when, no matter what, when one of those big walls in my house falls down, what does my foundation look like? Can it just be built up again? Or is the foundation a mess? Right, where are you founded? What is your foundation? Where are you solid? And I know sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it feels like God is so demanding and there's so many things in the Christian life to do. But I think sometimes when we fight it and kick against it, we make it harder on ourselves. Sometimes it's very simple. The answers are very clear and very simple, and we make it harder on ourselves.